My name is Jan Chorley. I'm the CEO of the Australia Day Council of South Australia. It's absolutely thrilling to have all of you here. The Australia Day Council of South Australia is really committed to deepening our understanding of our multicultural and refugee story. Your involvement this evening in sharing your experiences and exploring our national identity and our sense of belonging will inform the Australia Day Council of South Australia and the federal government through the Multicultural Framework review, what we need to be paying attention to in the future.
My name is Jack. My Aboriginal name is Ganya Pundonduet Pinakudnawitcha. People call me Jack because it's easier. I represent 3 different Aboriginal groups, Garn on the Adelaide Plains here, Narunga from the York Peninsula, and Wirangaroo from Streaky Bay, Sajuna area. My dad's Italian and Scottish, so we're talking about multiculturalism right here is what you need. And my daughter's Vietnamese and English on top of that. I do want to start by acknowledging country as I gather here today from different country within Garna lands. Maningadlu Tamperningardlu Garina Yartanga, Tikandi, Kumada Yachamini, Yalaka, Ngadluwangandi, Manini Burning Adluku Yartana, Kumada Pindimina, Yachamini, Yalaka, Manina Burdni. I pay respects to other Indigenous and Aboriginal people that also gather here today.
It's now my very great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Bulit Hasdalal, AO, who is the chair of the Multicultural Framework.
Thank you very much, Jan, and thank you for organising this event. I think it's really timely, and we're very grateful to you because I think it saves us a lot of work, because one of the things is that we really want to hear everyday voices, and I think you've filled the room up with everyday voices. So welcome to all. But firstly, if I can also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And welcome you all. Josephine, thank you also for helping organising this event tonight. And to everyone, I really appreciate this opportunity. What we want is a structure that's going to serve us well to the future, fit for purpose, and to address all those issues that we need to address for the future, but more importantly, a future for young Australians.
So please welcome Becky. Becky has 24 years worth of experience in community engagement. She's an outstanding facilitator, and she's going to really lead us through quite a significant process tonight. Please welcome Becky. Thank you.
And the idea really is to take you on a bit of a journey, thinking about your experience of arriving in Australia, or if you've lived in Australia your whole life, maybe others around you that you've seen arrive in Australia. We're going to talk about your sense of belonging here. We're going to talk about what you think we can be doing as a country to really help people feel welcome when they come, and the kind of country that we want to be, 2023 and beyond. And have a think about 1 or 2 words, and share with each other, as well as typing it up, 1 or 2 words that describe how you felt when you first arrived in Australia. Excited is clearly there. And when I was putting this question on the slides, I thought, how would I answer this? And excited was actually my word. I think I used cautiously excited, or cautiously optimistic was my kind of, you're really excited, but you're still a bit unsure about what's ahead. Loved what I saw. I came with assumptions, a new, different life, curious, new experiences ahead, harmony. I'm going to set you a challenge. Now, there's a couple of parts to this. I want to find out from you how long ago you arrived in Australia. I want you to line up from people who are the most recently here, recent, all the way through, and we're kind of going to have to weave through to, where did I start? First arrival, or new, like latest, you've been, you've arrived in Australia most recently, through to you've arrived in Australia, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Right, let's start with our most recent arrivals. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
What year?
9 months.
9 months.
Hi, I'm 3.5 before pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from Turkey.
Okay, Turkey?
From China.
Germany.
How long?
6 years.
Ukraine.
Ukraine, how long?
6 and almost a half.
6.5.
India, 8 years.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yasin Hassanyar, 7 years. So I'm from Afghanistan originally.
Fabulous, thank you.
Malaysia, 7 years.
9 years, India.
10 years. Chile.
10 years, Chile.
11 years, Germany.
13 years, Pakistan.
14 years, India.
14 years, China.
14 years, Somali.
15 years from Bhutan.
15 from Bhutan.
16 years from Nepal.
Okay, 16 years.
70 years from Myanmar.
18 years from Hungary.
20 from South Korea.
21 Iran.
22 Afghanistan.
23 from South Sudan.
30 years from the UK.
40 years from Romania.
50 years Scotland.
53 from Italy.
53 years from Cyprus, Turkish Cypriot.
First generation Australian, but my great-grandmother came 73 years ago.
So 7th generation, 1856, from Great Britain, and they settled in Riverton up in the Clare Valley.
Wow, let's give everybody a round of applause. Come back to your seats. So just take a minute to think about this question. What kind of country do we, Australia, want to become?
Having more languages other than English taught in schools, we think, a number of us here think, is really important in terms of generating cultural respect and also having that sense that we really are richly diverse and all the value that brings.
I'm 48. I've lived here all my life. I'm of Greek heritage. I'm citizen, dual citizen. What I have found is that there is a vacuum. So one community or culture come in and they work that and their children become better off and then they leave and then you get the next lot that's come in. What's going to happen when there comes a time when there's a generation that come to Australia and they don't want to fill that void, like the cleaners and the cooks, the farmers, that intensive work thing?
I think there's two types of migration happens here. The people who are forced to leave and to go somewhere under humanitarians. And then we have what I would call the new global citizens, because the people that come in, from wherever, they share the same mobile phones as you and I. And through IT, they have the same thing that we have in Australia. And we expect them to come here and not recognize their qualifications and get them to fill in the void in service industry. And so there is a change, there needs to be a change of discourse, how we discuss and view migrants.
Like when we talk about what kind of country do we want to become, or Australia to become, for me what comes to mind is inclusivity, so everyone being included. And how is that going to happen? We actually need to make sure we get right down to having the voice of everyone here tonight. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but this is the start. And I think when we talk about Indigenous Australians, we talk about their voice being heard in federal government. We need to get that part right before we even look at ourselves, because only when that is done properly, I believe that's the only way the federal government, let alone our local government, will be able to take us seriously.
There's a need for then reinventing the wheel to make sure these people feel they are included and they have access to jobs and services that can enable them settle well.
I think we are actually alienating our youth from some of these communities when they can't get jobs and they're not doing well at school either, those that are still at school, but many of them do have some qualifications and we're alienating them because they can't get anything in this new country of theirs.
I arrived in Australia 40 years ago, and it seems like the problems we had then, they're still persisting, even today. We are refugees, and I remember when I left my country, I promised myself that if I'll cross the border alive, and if I'll come to Australia, I would never, ever, ever complain about anything else. So it was hard for me a little bit, to complain about the fact that I can't be a cleaner, or I can't work in a bar, or I can't wash dishes in a restaurant. Everywhere we went, they were asking us about experience. And of course, people, we are a little bit overachievers and people who wanted to do everything, anything, anytime. And they asked me if I have any experience to work in a restaurant to do dishes. And I said, yes, of course I do have. Have you got Australian experiences? How is that different,
I think we need to open the door, bring more people from overseas. if you go to the construction industries, there is a lot of shortages of workers. We're talking to the builders, they're saying, okay, there is no workers. There's no bricklayers, there's no tilers, anything, even armor retailers. I can't get butchers, I can't get bakers. So there is a lot of opportunity. We need to be more welcoming, and I think we need to have more people from overseas, because the local people, they can't fill the gaps.
It almost seems like the most positive thing we can do is somehow introduce, trust but validation. It's almost like every person here wants to be validated. Did your family come 60 years ago? Are you 7th generation? Maybe that's the attitude we need to look forward to and bring into our children. How do we validate I don't know how, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer, but it just feels to me that every person wants to be validated, be it because they're the farmers in Virginia or this, that. It's just this validation. And some of us, even that are first generation, are looking for that validation. Because I know I will say to you that I know, and I've heard all the stories in my own community about what these refugees, my community were refugees, political, social, economical. There was a whole variety of there. But it actually becomes more difficult for us that are first generation, because we wear more caps than those that were just the refugee or the migrant, because we had to learn how to be the Aussie kid, but be the WOG kid, but be the daughter, but be the cool Aussie. At a really important time when you're a teenager, these titles and the expectations of everyone around you, and even I want to be validated. So I feel like the key in us moving forward is about validate. I don't know how to, but validation needs to be a key word here.
What do we need from our leaders, starting at the top all the way down, to support us in helping migrants and refugees make Australia their home?
One of the things, when we look at leaders, we have to have fresh blood, because we always have the same people, same old people, always representing us. But then there's so many wonderful young people, and I think to have that young bringing in fresh view. Sometimes it's the same thing regurgitated, but in a modern look. So all is new, new is all. So I think when you talk about diversity, it has to be diversity in aging as well, because we have wonderful, wonderful young people.
Community leadership programs. Give them the skills, give them the tools, give them the access, give them the knowledge to know how to help their communities.
When we think about that timeline, I mean, isn't that a reflection of what Australia looks like? That's who we are. We are absolutely that timeline over and over again in every state and territory across the country.